All right, boys and girls, we're going to talk about rounding today. And rounding is one of those things that there's lots of different ways to teach it. There's lots of different ways to do it, and it can be very confusing for students. So I want to show you a couple of different ways to do it, and then hopefully it'll make sense. And you can ask your math teacher specifically if you have questions, or maybe can you show me this again, or show me this way again. So this way is one way of doing it, where you circle the number that you're going to be rounding. So in this case, we're rounding the tens place, and we circle it. And then we underline the number next door, and it's a 5. And then you have to remember this part, which is the rounding rule. And so we're looking at the number we underlined. Is it 4 or less? If the underlined number is 4 or less, then the circled number, we let it rest, or it stays the same. If the underlined number is 5 or more, we raise the score on the circled number. So the 2 becomes a 3, as you can see here, because the underlined number fell into this group right here. Okay. Now, Miss Griffith is the one recording the video. So hi, everyone. And I don't exactly do it this way. I do a similar way, but the rounding rule is the same. You're looking at that underlined number. That underlined number is the backseat driver. That's kind of like if your mom or dad is sitting in the back seat and they're telling the person driving the car what to do, we call them a backseat driver. And so the underlined number is our backseat driver. He's bossing that circled number around. That's how I think of it. So 5 is a big bossy number. So he tells 2 to become 1 bigger. And so the 2 becomes a 3. And all the numbers that are underlined and behind become a 0. But like I said, that's not really how I see it sometimes. What I use a lot of times is this picture. Is this picture. It's not cooperating. There we go. It's like a hill or a roller coaster. And if you think about if you're on your bicycle or your scooter and you're going uphill, so this is you going up the hill. If you stop pedaling your bicycle or pushing on your scooter, what's going to happen to you if you're right here? If this is you, whoop, whoop, here you are with your wheels going on. What's going to happen to you? Are you going to appear? No, you're going to go down the hill, which is why we say you round down, okay? Because it's like you're following down a hill, okay? So I use this picture of a bent number line. This is like a number line. Miss Griffith sees this as a number line right here. And 5 is the top of the hill, because once you get to the top of the hill, okay, then if you make it up there, you're not going to round down. You're not going to fall down the hill. You've made it over the hill to the bigger number. And so it's like I took a number line and I bent it. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And so if I'm rounding, for example, 47 to the nearest 10, okay, here's my backseat driver, 7. Here he is. Well, that means I've made it over the hill, so I'm going to add 1 to 4, and it's going to become a 5, and this is going to become 50. Let's look at it another way. We just did this example. Here's 47. Whoops, sorry. 47 is right here. Is it closer to 40 or closer to 50? Well, obviously it's closer to 50. So 47 rounds or becomes 50, and 50 is my answer. Let's look at another problem. What if I were rounding 73? Well, 73. This is my number I'm rounding. Here's my backseat driver. He's not too bossy, so this guy is going to go back and become 70. So he rounds to 70. Okay? And so this hundredths chart, everybody in here can make a 100ths chart you just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 100. The only difference is when we're talking about rounding, notice what we've put over here. We've put a 0, and then this line right here is the tens again. It's a repeat of the tens numbers, okay? So I'm going to erase what's on here, and let's do a couple more just to kind of, I think this is really the most helpful way to do this. Let's do another number. Let's do a bigger number. Let's do something more challenging. Let's do, oh, I don't like that color. Hold on. Sorry. Let's round 4,283 to the nearest hundredths place. So right here. So what number did I circle? 2. What number did I underline? 8. So on my chart, I'm going to go find 28. Here it is. And I'm going to ask myself, is it closer to 30 or closer to 20? He's closer to 30. There's my answer. Because look, his backseat driver is 8. 5 or more, raise the score. 8's more than 5. So 2 is going to become a 3. That becomes a 0. Everything else becomes a 0. And this becomes 4,300. Okay? I don't know if that helps or not. I'm going to stop for a second and let you think on it. Let's take this same number again, 4,283, and say we're going to round it to the thousands place. I've got 4 circled and a 2, so 42 right there. What's it closer to, 40 or 50? It's closer to 40. My backseat driver is a 2, 4 or less, let it rest, so it's going to stay a 4, and everything else turns into a 0. Okay? I hope that makes a little bit of sense looking at the hundredths chart. What we're going to do now, I'm going to try. Let me erase all of my writing because it gets really cranky when I don't. So I'm going to go back to our problem. So here, this is just another way to look at that hundredths chart. Instead of looking at that big old hundredths chart with all the numbers on it, I just focus on, on the ones digits here. Okay, these are the ones digits, and this would be another 0 because this is when we add, the extra, we add, go up 1. Okay, so now we're going to do some examples. Here we go. All right, so what I'm going to try to do as we do these examples is I'm going to try to go from this slide where we're working to the hundredths chart to the rounding chart, not the hundredths chart, the rounding chart to help you, okay? So our first number is 3,000. I'm sorry, that's not 3,000, is it? I bet you all went, what? That's not 3,000. It is 32,987. Okay, and it wants us to round to the nearest 1,000. Okay, so using what we've talked about, we find the thousands place, that's the 2, and we circle this number, which is a 9. So I'm thinking about the number 29. Okay, now the 3 that I haven't done anything up here in the front, he's just going to come along. So write him down. He's not changing. We're only looking at the 2 and the 9. Okay, so if we follow our rounding rule, and I'm going to change colors, 9 tells 2 to become a 3, and then everything else turns into a 0. Okay, including the 8 and the 7. So see, it rounds. Okay, so let's go to our rounding chart. And let's check ourselves. Here's 29. Yep, it's a lot closer to 30. There's our 30. See our 30 there in the middle? Here's our 30 in the middle. Yes? Okay. Let's try another one. Don't stress. Don't stress. It's okay. You've got this. Let's look at the one right underneath it. Okay. It says rounded to the 100,000s. So I'm gonna circle my 100,000s place. I'm gonna underline the backseat driver. 5 or more raise the score. So 6 is telling 5 to become a 6-2. And everything behind it turns into a 0. And that's if you really get the rounding rule and you understand it and you're like Miss Griffith, you spend a lot of time doing it, that makes sense. But what if you're struggling a bit? Let's look at it another way. I'm just looking at the number 56. So I go to my rounding chart and I find 56. There it is. Is 56 closer to 50 or to 60? It's a lot closer to 60. So in the middle of that number, instead of 56, I'm going to put a 60. And everything else behind it becomes zeros. See how that is? Okay. Let's look at another one. This one says round to the nearest 10,000. So find my thousands, comma, and 10,000. That 4 right there. There's his backseat driver. So I'm thinking about the number 44. So let's see. 3 is not going to change. All right. What's going to happen to the 4? Is he going to stay a 4? Is he going to rest? Or is he going to up the score? His backseat driver is a 4. 4 or less, let it rest. So the circled 4 stays a 4. Everything becomes a 0. Okay? There you go. You've got it. Don't stress. We're going to do a lot of practice with rounding. We really don't do rounding all that much, even in math class. In real life, we round all the time without even thinking about it. And so, again, it's one of those skills that you kind of know how to do, but when we're trying to do it in school, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. So just remember, pause the video, listen again, okay? I'm going to go over here to the rounding chart. I think we were doing 44, yep. So if I go to 44, here it is. And it's between 40 and 50. It's a little bit closer to 40, and that's why, if you look here, we get 40 in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to have to erase a little bit. Got too big there. So that's 40 in the middle there. Okay. All right, let's look at this one. Let me see. I've got to find a different color. Here we go. We'll do blue this time. This is nearest 100. So 7 is in the hundredths place. I'm going to circle it. And I'm going to underline the one behind it, which is the 6. I think of my rounding rule. 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or more, raise the score. 6 is big, so it should go up. Now, the 2 stays the same because it's in front of this. And we're looking at 76 on the hundredths chart. So what's it closer to? Let's go look. 76. It's between 70 and 80. It's closer to 80. So in the middle of this number is going to be 80, and then the last number stays a 0. So it rounds. See, look at the 100. Now you have 100. 100. Yes? Okay. Remember to pause. If you're getting overwhelmed, pause and go back. If you're starting to feel stressed, pause and go back. Okay? Let's do one more. 751 to the nearest 10. Let's see here. Kind of running out of colors here. Miss Griffith's been color crazy today. All right, so I'm going to circle my tens place. That's the 5. Underline the backseat driver. He's just a little old piddly 1. 7's not going to change. And we're thinking about 51 when we go to our hundredths chart. There's 51. Oh, look, he's right next to 50. So this is going to be 750. Like I said, we're going to be doing rounding on and off through the whole year. It's not something to stress about. The rounding chart is going to be available to you to help you just get started. And it's one of those questions that I know most teachers will answer for a long time because it just takes practice and you'll get it. It's not hard. You've just got to remember the rounding rule. The rounding rule. And the rounding rule is, can you say it with me? Do you remember it? Do you remember the rounding rule? 4 or less, let it rest. That means the number you circled stays the same. 5 or more, raise the score. Add 1 to the number that you circled. Okay? Have a great day, guys. Thanks for listening.